This program is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, who's expanding its services to offer low-cost blood screenings all year round, now offering walk-in convenience to get the blood tests you want when you want them. MyLabs, patient-ordered testing, is available in Farmington at the hospital's laboratory and the Outpatient Diagnostic Center on 30th Street. Also in Aztec at San Juan Health Partners Family Medicine at 120 Llanos Street. With nearly 20 tests available, there's an option for everyone. MyLabs, patient-ordered testing, a wellness service of San Juan Regional Medical Center. 11 minutes past 8 o'clock. It's Monday morning, October 22nd. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Michlin, and thank you for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM, the information and cultural beacon of the Four Corners. A special good morning to our viewers who are tuning in and watching live this morning on the KSJE Facebook page and YouTube channel. Coming up on the program this morning, we are focusing on politics on this Monday as Election Day gets closer and closer. My first guest, Representative Paul Bandy, will be here. He is a Republican running for New Mexico Representative District 3. We'll be talking to Mr. Bandy in just a moment here on KSJE. And then at 8:30, we will switch just a little bit to a statewide race, and that is New Mexico Court of Appeals Judge Hank Bonhoff will be my guest, a Republican running for the Court of Appeals. We'll be hearing from Judge Bonhoff coming up at 8:30 today on KSJE as well. Don't forget, of course, Roving with the Arts comes along at 9. Mick Hess will be here. He is playing Beethoven for us, and today it is Beethoven's String Quartet number 15. You'll hear that today on Roving with the Arts. And a reminder, you can always get a reminder of our programming schedule each and every day by going to our website, and that's at ksje.com. It's also where you'll find our regional events calendar, and that has got a lot of regional events on it for you to take a look at what's going on this week and beyond. And as you take a look, folks who are watching, we can show you Nate Powell is going to be on campus here at San Juan College. He's the author of the One Book, One Community selection for this semester. There are several events involving Mr. Powell, a book signing, a meet and greet, and an evening with Mr. Powell. That is coming up tomorrow here at KSJE. There's some news about some upcoming casting calls in the Albuquerque area. You can check out that. More details on our regional events calendar. And the Breast Cancer Awareness Luncheon and Style Show is taking place this week at Pinion Hills Community Church. Details about that event and many, many more available to you on our website at ksje.com. Joining me now as we continue our coverage in the 2018 elections that are coming up, Paul Bandy is here. He is the Republican candidate for state representative in District 3. Mr. Bandy, good morning.
Good morning, Scott.
Thank you for coming in this morning.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate you accepting our invitation to talk about the campaign and why you are running again. You are the incumbent state representative.
I am. 12 years now. 12
years. And so you want 4 more years? Two, excuse me.
Yeah, the House term is 2 years.
I should know that, and I did know that. I misspoke, but thank you. And so you are, your primary background is in agriculture, right?
That's right. I'm a rancher. I started out as a sheep rancher in the county and converted to cows. We now have a cow operation, and we sell grass-fed beef.
Got you. And so in the campaign, some of the big issues would be, and differences between you and your opponent would be, what would you say?
Well, I think perhaps maybe the primary difference would be in energy jobs.
Okay.
And as you know, that we have a real threat to the Four Corners power plant.
That's right.
2 years ago, or maybe even it was 1 year ago, that the Public Service of New Mexico had a plan to shut down 2 units and then to have the other 2 units operate through the useful life of the unit, which was to 2050 something.
Right, and everyone was concerned about it, but they thought, well, we can maybe live with that decreased at least production, but at least we won't lose everything.
That is correct, and all of the legislators from this part of the county, all 4 of us and those senators, were at the Public Regulatory Commission meeting that considered that, and we all supported that. We sat there like crows on a wire,
right?
Because you can't say much on that.
Sure, yeah. But that seemed to be a good compromise.
And we really supported that. And a year later, Public Service of New Mexico decide they're going to shut the whole plant down.
We're done in 2022.
Right, and I understand that maybe the economics of power generation is changing, but that is really a short time for us to be prepared as a community for that sort of thing. So we are asking them to at least to extend that time period past 2022.
I see. And that, you feel, is one of the things that you as a state representative can help kind of shepherd through the legislation to maybe help PNM make that decision and protect those jobs associated with the plant and the associated mine.
Yeah, and that is correct. That's what I intend to work on in the next session if I'm returned.
Right.
And I think it's important to our community. It's important to the families of the people that are employed there. And at least half of them, I think, are Native Americans from this area.
Sure, sure.
And it will have a big impact on our community if that shuts down in 22.
Right. And
also on the tax base for
everybody else.
Yeah, for the school district there.
Right. It's Central Consolidated. That's San Juan College, I think, that would be impacted.
Correct.
And so that's it would be a big impact to a lot of folks.
That's right.
A lot of folks. And talk to me a little bit about the future, though, because if we can get PNM maybe to hang on for a couple more years, and it still seems like the future of coal and coal mining may be limited. Would you agree with that?
Well, it may be. You know, it has a lot to do with the economics of it.
Sure. And how much does it cost to get that out of the ground? And
I've been talking to the coal generation facilities in different parts of the country. There's one in Mulesville, Texas. They bring the coal all the way down from Wyoming.
Oh, do they?
They do, and it costs about 3 cents a kilowatt hour.
That sounds pretty cheap.
It is cheap
to produce the energy.
To produce that energy, and PNM maintains it's a lot more expensive here.
I see.
And I don't really understand why.
Well, I've always heard, though, that our coal that we mine here in San Juan County is maybe not the best quality coal for maybe power generation. It's maybe a little bit tougher to burn, or
it is not. Yes, it has lower BTU content.
Right.
But
would
on
that
the other hand,
cost,
you don't have to take it all the way from Wyoming
Well, that's a good point. You have to cross the street with it, pretty much, in some of those situations. That's very true.
And another, we're talking about energy jobs.
Yes, sir.
And of course, we're big in natural gas here. And also oil.
Right, a little bit.
And, when I was first elected in 2006, and by 2010, the price of oil was $100 a barrel. The price of natural gas was $10 a 1,000 cubic feet.
Right.
And the projection was, at that time, that we would have a gradual decrease in the energy supply from New Mexico, in the energy production. But what has happened is the new technology of three-dimensional imaging, where you can actually see where the strata is underground.
Right.
Horizontal drilling, where they can drill through it horizontally instead of going through it vertically, and fracking, hydraulic fracturing. Right now, the last time we went to the Legislative Finance Council, the projection, the actual energy, oil production in New Mexico has quadrupled since 2010.
Wow.
Which is just astonishing.
Right.
And that all has to do with the new technology. Now, some of the statewide candidates on the other side have promised to do away with hydraulic fracking, and that would be a disaster for the budget of New Mexico.
Sure.
The last Legislative Finance Council projection was that it was $1.5 billion more that would go into the state.
From primarily that oil and gas industry.
From that and associated growth of fees tax associated
Right.
with that. But yeah, from that industry.
It is a big impact in our state, that's for
Yes.
sure. And certainly a lot of the folks might say, but we want to do it responsibly. There is a possibility for fracking to cause environmental problems.
Actually, we've had environmental problems associated with it on our ranch. And we have a spring there that had gas coming out of it that
Right.
you could light. And
A natural seepage, basically,
Well,
right? Is that what it's from, you think?
no, I don't think so. I think what it was a fracking that was not Well, oil was not done properly.
I see.
Because what you have to do is through the water layers, and for quite a ways, they have to cement it properly so that it doesn't come up.
The casing.
The casing. And,
Yes, sir.
and I think that's what happened, because we reported it to the Oil Conservation Division, and they worked over some wells and re-cemented some wells. They shut in one well,
Okay.
and it's almost completely stopped.
Good.
So I think it has to be done properly and carefully, and with a significant regulation.
Right.
But
not to be done away with entirely.
Oh, if it was done away with entirely, I think it would be a big hit to our economy, and even to our county economy, because the oil here is within the 30-mile exclusion zone that they're proposing for Chocolate Canyon. That almost all the development in our areas there within that zone.
There's a lot of possibilities in the southern part of the county, is what you're
Yes,
saying, and
yes.
that would kind of runs into that protection zone around Chaco Canyon that's being proposed. I hear what
Right.
you're saying. Let me ask you a bit, though, because we can't put all of our eggs in the oil and gas basket as much as maybe we'd like to, because we've seen kind of the booms and busts. Is there room for some other type of renewable energy policy in our state?
Well, I think there is. I mean, if and probably when at some future date, hopefully further than 2022,
Right.
they close down the San Juan mine. I think that would be a good location for solar installation, and also natural gas backup, because the solar and wind, of course, are not reliable. When the sun's not shining, the wind's not blowing.
That's
so
true.
So you need some kind of backup that you can turn on and turn off, and that would be natural gas, and we certainly have an abundance of that here.
That we do. And solar, I think this area is in a great spot for solar. Wind, maybe not so much, more on the eastern side of the state.
Well, not so much wind. I think maybe on the top of the Chusca Mountains. I think that
Maybe that'd be a spot for it. You never know, but that's true. But is there a way maybe that the state could play a role in providing some incentives or some other type of inducements for companies maybe to invest in solar in this part of the state in order to help diversify, move us away from some of the booms and busts?
You know, I don't know. I think the state, the primary thing that the state could do is, if there's not a transmission line that ties into the grid, the state could participate in that and make that possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I don't think we need to. I think that solar is to the point now that really doesn't need any more subsidies to make it economic.
It's on its own. It can stand on its own.
I think it can stand on
in
its
some of
own.
these projects, perhaps.
Correct.
Mr. Bandy, let me ask you a bit about some other topics that you're very passionate about. That's the State Permanent Fund.
Yes.
It is one of the richest in the country, I think, that our state enjoys, and there's been a lot of folks that have been kind of looking at it in lean times, when it's hard to find money to maybe spend it on some other things. But what's your thought about that?
Well, the State Permanent Fund is not a rainy day fund. The State Permanent Fund is like an endowment, and the idea is that that money, the principle of that stays entire, and that you can spend the increase of it that's result from investments.
The interest or other whatever it's earning or whatever.
Or
Yes, sir.
stock market or whatever it is. So
Correct.
that's the way it is now. Current, you know, when
And we do use
it
it.
was 5%. It's in the Constitution. 5% of rolling average is disbursed every year.
Right.
And which is a lot of money. 5%, that's going to be close to $20 billion, I think. And 5% of that is a lot of money.
Right. Right.
And without that, you know, which is mostly goes to education, higher education, but mostly to what they call in the Constitution common schools,
Right.
and some other beneficiaries too. That without that, it would be hard to make up that difference. When
You're concerned about people that want to take some of the principle and use it for something.
Yeah, I want they want to raise, well, two things that I'm concerned about. One, they want to raise the distribution, and there's been different ideas, but another percent, and I think that, and most people that are familiar with endowments say that would threaten the principle.
I see.
And that, in the long run, would reduce the amount of money that's available mostly for school funding.
Right.
And also, they want to use it for daycare, basically, which is not part of that is not a beneficiary that's in the Constitution, and also in the compact with the United States that was established in 1912. in order to change where the money goes and to add a different beneficiary, it would be required not only to change the Constitution, but to have permission from the United States Congress, which has to approve all interstate contracts.
Oh, interesting. And I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, do you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, but that's been one of the things that I work very hard is to educate fellow legislators about how the permanent fund works.
Gotcha.
And what would be the problem with changing the distribution of it.
Right. It would take a big constitutional amendment, I suppose, and then, as you mentioned, maybe some other approvals too down the line to make that happen.
From the Congress of the United States.
Yes. And you mentioned that some folks would like to fund daycare, and I think I've heard another term, early childhood education. And so, do you not feel that that's worth talking about?
Well, I think, quite frankly, I think the best early childhood education is the parents.
Right.
But I understand that in some situations maybe that's not possible. And we do already fund what they call early childhood education, although some of it are daycare centers.
Right.
And that may be necessary to do, but I don't think it's necessary to raid the permanent fund for that purpose.
Understood. Gotcha. Paul Bandy is my guest this morning. He is a Republican running for state representative in District 3. And for folks who are watching us this morning, Mr. Bandy, on Facebook and YouTube, I do want to show the district because it is a bit of a hard to kind of describe, I guess, but I do want to show it to folks. We do have the map up on the screen that we can show folks, and it does kind of starts at the Colorado line on the eastern side of San Juan County, and then drops down and kind of wiggles around the city of Aztec there.
It comes down Light Plant Road and all the way to the river, to the Animas River, and then goes to the east from there, and then wiggles around. But it basically includes most of Aztec, all of Bloomfield, all of Blanco, Navajo Lake, and almost all the way down to DZ. I've never been able to pronounce that.
Right, that's how I say it too. I'm right there with you. But that's the map, and as you can see, and takes maybe a little bit about maybe the eastern half of Flora Vista. Not even quite that much?
To the south of the Animas River.
There you are. Okay. But that's the map of District 3, everybody. And I do want to ask you a bit more about, again, you're running as a Republican, and you're very proud of your conservative values, you told me, right?
Yes.
And that is, if you had to just kind of define that, what would you say as a conservative? What do you... describe yourself.
I think upholding the Constitution of the United States. The United States is kind of a unique place. Most nations came from a certain ethnic group.
That's right.
Or a certain historical background. The United States basically is established based upon the Constitution. And if you want to be a member of the United States, you have to pledge your support of the Constitution. We pledged that in New Mexico legislature when we were sworn in to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of New Mexico. And so I think it's important that we look at the Constitution and I think that interpret it more as it was originally written rather than adding a bunch of things to it. For instance,
yes, go ahead.
Well, okay, we have
just a couple of minutes.
Largo Canyon.
All right.
The United States Corps of Engineers says that's a navigable waterway. Because
not this year. I don't know if any year, but yes, sir.
But that is they say that the United States Constitution gives the federal government power to control navigable waterways, but they extend that to include not just the Animas River, but also Largo Canyon, and which has caused problems with the county here trying to build access across Largo Canyon.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one example. There's many examples of what I would consider to be federal overreach.
I gotcha. Well, that would be a whole other show. Yes. I bet we could talk for another hour about that.
Probably could. Yes.
Yes, sir. But we are out of time this morning, so I do apologize. But if folks would like more information about your campaign, Mr. Bandy, I bet you've got a website and the usual stuff that goes along with a political campaign these days.
We do have a website, paulbandy.org.
Okay.
I do not have a Facebook page. I do not do Twitter.
Okay.
I'm too old for that.
Well, I don't. That's all right. It's a big time commitment. So, and you've got other things to be busy with.
I do. We have to stay busy on the ranch.
That's true. But folks can find out more online if they go to your website.
Yes, they could.
All right. Very good. Mr. Bandy, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Scott.
You're very welcome.
Bye.
Paul Bandy, my guest here on KSJE. Back with more in just a moment.